Relax, rest in the presence, and hold space.
Satsang in the heart of love. In the heart of love.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Welcome to our weekly online satsang. I guess we've got a little hum tonight.
Yes.
Om Mani Padme Hum. Anyway, welcome everyone. Such a blessing to be able to gather together like this on Monday evenings. Monday evening for us, whatever it is for you. I know we have people joining us from Europe and from Asia and from South America and Australia and various places, which is really nice. So we welcome everyone. And how else could we just drop in and get together on a Monday night, share blessings? So this is one great use of the internet and the technology we have available now. But these Flowering Heart Satsangs are simply a community gathering of people who are on the path of awakening and the flowering of the heart. And we come from different teachers, different teachings, different traditions. What we have in common is that we're all experiencing awakening, transformation, and the flowering of our hearts with enlightened divine consciousness. It's quite a journey. It's really important that we join together with others that are experiencing the same journey because it's intended that way, and we strengthen one another. Our peace, our interior silence is multiplied when we join together in the presence. Throughout these webcasts, we share the Flowering Heart Blessing. The Flowering Heart Blessing is a transmission from the Divine Source, which is given by the Divine for the purpose of catalyzing awakening, transformation, and the flowering of the heart. When the Divine gave us this blessing to share, 6 years ago approximately, the Divine Presence told us very clearly, tell people this one comes directly from me. It doesn't belong to an avatar or a saint or a master or a spiritual hierarchy or organization at all. It comes directly from me. It doesn't belong to any particular spiritual tradition or religion. I think you get the point. The Divine is saying, this one's from me, we didn't take that as a criticism of all the rest. I mean, all the great spiritual traditions have some form. If you go deep enough, you look deep enough, you'll find there's some form of divine transmission. And the Divine is working through all the great spiritual traditions. Usually, whether it's, the blessing of the gift of the Holy Spirit in Christianity, or whether it's Diksha within the Hindu tradition, there's so many of these beautiful transmissions that occur. Usually they become part and parcel of that tradition through which they're flowing, that hierarchy that is bestowing the gift. The Divine said, you're not bestowing this gift, I am. Tell people it's coming directly from me, therefore it can truly support you in your unique path, whatever. Even though our paths are parallel, there can be vast differences in some ways between a Hindu, a mystical Christian, a pagan, a shaman. And so the Flowering Heart Blessing is able to support whatever path you're on without changing that. The Divine also said it's free. I have intended for this to be a gift of grace, and grace means unearned, unmerited, and unpaid for. Absolutely free, give it away. And tell people when they receive this blessing, they are being initiated to be able to pass it on themselves. So if this is your first time, you're soaking in it right now. Just open yourself to the presence and the energy field that we're all sharing and experiencing, and just welcome it and invite the divine presence to use you as an instrument of grace to share the Flowering Heart blessing. From that point on, anyone that you hold with intention in your heart in prayer or meditation will receive the Flowering Heart blessing. And it's the divine that's doing it. That's how I can say it for sure works. Because it's not dependent on you or me or Suzanne. It's just the divine looking for instruments through which to flow. And anyone you share the Flowering Heart blessing with is initiated themselves if they desire. And it can also be done in person through the laying on of hands with the receiver's consent. There needs to be informed consent. This is a blessing that's going to rock your world and begin to change everything and bring about awakening. And it's amazing how many people in today's world want that. So please share it freely, give it away. It really works. And Suzanne and I have been experiencing a lot of different kinds of blessing over many decades. And I have to say, I can't think of one I didn't love. You know, from the Tibetan empowerments to the Taoist empowerments, the Christian transmissions through the Holy Spirit aimed at awakening us to the presence of God, and to various forms of Shaktipat and Diksha. And Diksha just means blessing. There's a Sanskrit name for Flowering Heart blessing, but all that matters is the blessing, not the names and the concepts. So please share it freely. Oh, and please give us a like or a love if you're on Facebook, so we can see who's here. I mean, I know a few of you are, and we'll look at your names later on. If you enter a comment in the chat, well, then we'll know. But otherwise, the only way we know you're here, and it's so wonderful because last week there were a bunch of people on the evening of the Satsang and in the days that followed, some people we haven't connected with in a long time. And it's so beautiful because we really are all family. Whether we're sharing the Flowering Heart blessing or some other form of blessing, all of us who are awakening at this time on planet Earth and our hearts flowering, we're more than family actually. We're one being. We're one. One cosmic universal being that is expressing itself through 7 billion odd human forms, and through the trees, and through the mountains, and the planets, and the stars, which is so important that we have a right relationship with the material universe as well. But we humans are actually one being expressing itself as you and as me. And when we become sufficiently awakened, we can look into each other's eyes and see ourselves looking back at us through the other, because we are the same one. So, glad you're here. Glad you're awakening. We're going to open it to questions and answers now. So hopefully you don't know everything yet, and you might have a question. Or maybe, hopefully you do know everything. But where our understanding is concerned, the part of us that seeks understanding and integration, which involves the mind, we're always growing. We're always seeking more light, deeper clarity and understanding, if we're open to it. I really like that beginner's mind idea, which was put forth, I think, by a Zen master or masters, that says, encourages us, no matter how we think we've advanced and awakened and grown, to keep a beginner's mind. Only don't know. just to stay open to the wonder of the present moment and realize, think about it, just a little, don't overthink it, but along the spiritual journey, as we've had breakthroughs, openings, and awakenings, often everything we thought we understood up to that moment it's like popping a balloon. We didn't quite have it right because the mind doesn't get it. And so by keeping that childlike innocence and openness to new understanding and new truth, we really grow leaps and bounds. When we get to the point where we think we got it, it actually gets in the way. And the divine has to sort of rearrange things so that we get the realization that, wow, I don't actually know what I thought I knew. And,
That's funny you mentioned that, because when you were giving the intro, I was thinking about when we first started giving this blessing, and some people were saying, oh, you can't just be initiated or activated instantly, you know, you really need to work for it and go through deep spiritual processes and courses, and which is like totally not what grace means. And I just find it interesting that the mind and the ego want to have some kind of a certification or to be put through something before they can experience the grace that's all around us right now. And so that's what we've been doing the last 6 years, is just inviting people to, like Michael said, you know, just don't know, and why don't you just experience what's being presented and let it sink in and experience the grace. And then we have to, like, our head goes on tilt and our ego's like, but no, I didn't work for this, and no, I didn't pay for it, and no, I didn't do this or that, and it's all a matter of reprogramming and coming deeper and deeper into our hearts and seeing things and understanding things on a totally different level, because the mind and the ego are always making things so complicated, and it's really just much more simple than that.
a dear friend of mine who is himself a master and a very awakened being, he's in a student-teacher relationship with a very enlightened Zen master. And names aren't important, but what's interesting is the story of that particular Zen master. He never went to a sesshin, which is like a Zen retreat. He never went to a temple. He never sought enlightenment. He never read any texts. Oh, this is so unfair. He just woke up one day and he was completely enlightened. No self. This is his last human incarnation here. And he didn't work for it at all. Now, we could say, oh my God, I've worked so hard. That's just not fair. Well, maybe the working so hard is then in the way. Because, I mean, there's nothing wrong with spiritual practice and discipline. As one, wow, Zen keeps coming up, oh, because we played the Buddha medicine music from Angelica. But one current Zen master says, enlightenment is an accident. It's not something, in his opinion, it's not something that can be bestowed or worked for or engineered. It's an accident. But he said, I've noticed that people who have a consistent spiritual practice, discipline in their life are quite accident prone when it comes to enlightenment. So there are rewards, but it is grace. And I repeatedly point to the Buddha as an example. What an example, right? Because he tried everything. He worked so hard, learned all the yogas, all the different forms of meditation. He was disciplined. He lived in the jungle with the sadhus. He did it all, and none of it worked for him. And he finally just sat down under the Bodhi tree, which is a kind of ficus tree that grows in India, and he just gave up. And when he gave up the right way. And immediately enlightenment began to unfold in him when he got out of his own way. And I'm sure that his passion for enlightenment, his strong intention, and the consistent effort he was making helped in some way. Because it set the course. But that had to be united with a surrender to grace. You know, strong intention, consistent right effort and practice in the right direction, not excessive or fanatical, and ultimately the biggest ingredient is grace. Which means we have to stop thinking we're working for it, or we're, earning it, or that we really have anything to do with it whatsoever. Okay? So, anyway. Oh, we were talking about the flowering heart blessing. Yeah. So keep giving it. But also, whatever form of blessing you're giving, give it. I mean, if you've got the grace of Shaktipat or some Diksha that flows through one, and there are a number of living Indian saints and masters today that have very powerful Diksha flowing through them. If you're a Christian mystic and you have the graces and gifts of the Holy Spirit flowing through you to awaken people to the divine presence, share it with us tonight. I mean, any blessing that comes from the divine for the purpose of awakening and liberating and transforming people, causing their hearts to flower in oneness with the divine and unconditional love, we're all for it. So please feel free to share your blessing. But everyone here as well is able, as of this moment, to share the flowering heart blessing. So please do that. And please share your puzzlement over the spiritual, some aspect of the spiritual journey.
We had great questions last week. Thank you.
Indeed. And I think we got a good one. We might as well just go right to it because it's related to the flowering heart blessing, which we were just talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So we got this email from Linda during the week. Thank you so much for that. I know you're either here with us right now or you'll be watching this a little later. But Linda writes, "Hi, Michael. Thank you to you and Suzanne for the work that you do. Heart. My question. I'm known at the wellness expos that I go to for giving the oneness blessing. Since we were told to no longer do that by oneness is, if you're not familiar with it, is a sort of a movement, which these days is known as the Golden Age movement. It was known for years as the oneness movement, and for many years shared a very powerful form of Diksha, of blessing. And that particular group were instructed by their leaders not to give their form of the oneness blessing anymore. So I'm known at the wellness expos that I go to for giving the oneness blessing. Since we were told to no longer do that by oneness, I would like to transition to giving the flowering heart blessing. And I did the online initiation on your website. How do I go about doing this? And who, which guides, deities, etc. would I call in? You can answer this on the next live stream, as I always pick up on the replays. Thank you so much, Linda. Great question. And about the initiation on our website, there is a 36-minute video. There are multiple links to it on the home page and other places on the website where Suzanne and I, when we first began giving the flowering heart blessing, knew that some people wanted more understanding and to feel like I just went through an initiation. So we did this 36-minute video, and it was so graced by the presence. We were like higher than kites for days. Yeah. You're welcome to use it, incidentally. You can download it. If you want to start a blessing circle, you could get one other person to just hit play on your laptop. And in 36 minutes, anyone who watches that video will get it. And so Linda has been through that and is not new to this whole world because she's been a oneness blessing giver for some time. And because she wants to honor the intentions of those teachers, she would like to share the flowering heart blessing, and there's no restriction here. So, how do I go about doing this? Well, you just give it. One way was to use the video, but many of you would be able to explain the nature of blessing on your own. But then this last part of the question, and who, which guides, deities, etc. would I call in? Shall I continue?
Sure.
Okay, well, when I was talking about the flowering heart blessing, the first thing the divine told us is this doesn't belong to anybody, just me. Now, who's me? Okay. There are many deities which are expressions or forms of the divine. But I think the divine has been very clear that this one doesn't belong to a specific deity. This isn't the Shakti pot of the Lord Shiva. I mean, as powerful as that is to awaken Kundalini and it's linked to Shiva, different. And you can invoke Shiva, and there are various forms, and you know, I mean, in India, you have millions upon millions of deities. But I think that what's most appropriate here, I mean, any divine being might work through the flowering heart blessing, but just to invoke the universal source. Now, however you understand that, I mean, for you, it might be Paramatma. Paramatma is a word that means supreme being. Atma, it means being. It's often translated soul, but it means being. The Paramatma is the supreme being that lives in the hearts of all of us. And in a way that's, I mean, it's a Sanskrit word, but it's nameless. Some people would refer to that as the God within. Perfectly acceptable. Some people would just invoke the light and understand the divine as infinite, limitless, boundless presence and life and light. And it doesn't have a form, and it doesn't have just a name. That seems to resonate in me with what we got from the divine when we were given this blessing and what's continued to flow. I mean, nothing wrong. If you're a Buddhist, then your sense of the supreme being might be Bodhi. Bodhi is a word that just basically means awake. Awake, it means enlightened. It's the enlightened Buddha mind, which is none other than the Paramatma, which is none other than. So it would be fine if you're a Buddhist to just, invite Bodhi. If you're a Christian, there's nothing at all wrong with inviting the cosmic Christ or the Holy Spirit or Father, Mother, God, however you relate to that. But the simpler the better. In this case, thought forms and concepts are irrelevant. There is the presence, which is what we normally use in our meetings and our satsangs, is we talk about connecting with the presence. No one stumbles over that. As soon as we mention deity, which deity? And then if you slip and you use the G word, God, some people just, they shut down because there's a certain healing that needs to take place with the concepts that have been generated and promulgated by religion. I mean, I have no problem with God at all, because to me, all these names are referring to the same thing, which is the universal presence from which everything emerges. And within this presence, all things exist. And we're melting into this presence to discover, oh my gosh, we are the presence. We. So that would be, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'm thinking too, because expos, are busy areas and stuff, and these days with everybody, not everybody, but people being concerned with social distancing, people might not feel comfortable with somebody putting their hands on their head. And so, we just have to be more creative. Like you could create a circle and send the flowering heart blessing to everybody in the circle and have them be in a receptive mode and just in their own way, in their hearts, to pray, to be a vehicle or an instrument for this energy to flow through them. And then give them the experience. Ask them to put their hands up and create, a blessings for the whole circle, kind of like what we do at the end of the satsang tonight. So there's many different ways to be creative, but I think what we experienced when we first started doing this was how profound it was that people that maybe just came to our meeting for the first time and just walked in the door and they received the blessing, and then they would give us the flowering heart blessing, and how powerfully it was flowing through their hands after just receiving one blessing. And so I think people really like to feel that. They like to feel the energy. It's like, wow, something actually is really happening. And you could also suggest that they give the blessings to themselves after they've been activated. Mm-hmm. And they can feel the energy going through their head and into themselves.
So there's no problem. I mean, if you work with specific spirit guides, if you have a specific relationship with deities, Kuan Yin, there's so many deities, that's okay. I mean, sure, that's okay. But I think with a group setting, it's nice to just invoke something no one can stumble over.
Right.
And but again, I mean, this doesn't mean that you have to distance yourself at all from your spirit guides or your divines. I mean, of course not. That would be ridiculous. But because this is, and sometimes it's bothered me that in certain traditions and groups, that when a blessing is being given, and the idea is that this is absolutely the pure light of the Supreme Being, that secretly there's a light, but I'm going to shove Jesus into your heart, or I'm going to project the avatar into your light being or something. That's not informed consent either.
Right.
And so this is so simple.
So simple.
Because it's just the presence. If it's comfortable to say the divine presence, okay, but the presence is enough, because that's really what it is. It is the being that we're all sharing and experiencing.
And that touches into what we were talking about earlier, about how, the mind and the ego want to be in control of things, and they want to make sense of it, and they want to organize it, and they want to, have a sense of purpose or feeling of significance. And so the more that we dive into our hearts and just connect with that presence, that starts to fall away, and we don't really care about that stuff very much anymore, because we recognize it for what it is. And so the more that we can get to just helping people connect with the divine within them that's already there, the more openly they feel that energy, and it's a lot less work for the person who's transmitting the blessing, because we're not sitting there thinking, I wonder if I'm doing this right, I wonder if this is right, I wonder if I shouldn't do this, if I'm in a bad mood, blah, 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 blah. It's all the mind. So the more we just get out of the way and give the blessing and just come from our hearts, and it just does itself.
I remember it's been years since I dared to say something like this, but a separate God, an objective God, in a very real way, only exists as long as there is a separate self. There's subject, me, ego, and there's this awesome divine being. And there's a relationship between the two as long as there's subject and object, a separate self, a separate deity. But when oneness happens, what happens? Subject and object unite. I mean, in real oneness, the object and the subject perceiving it unite as one. When that happens, when we're talking about merging with the divine being, the separate self dissolves. There's no longer a separate self to experience a separate divine. Both subject and object disappear when they merge, and all that's left is divine consciousness, which we could call presence. Now, there are other names. We could call it Satchidananda, we could call it this and that. But basically, that's what happens. And the more we talk about it in a separate self of me and that God, it perpetuates separation. I have no problem with that. I love to worship the divine. I love bhakti. I love worship in the Sufi tradition, the Christian tradition, the Jewish tradition. I love it. It's great. That said, again, when subject and object, when self and the divine come together and merge, the self disappears, but in a way, so does the divine. And there's just the universal presence. So I've said it, we've said it several ways, but hoping it really does get across. And of course, you could spring that on the wrong group too quickly. I mean, if I was walking into my grandmother's Sunday school class, I would not have said what I just said. We have to have wisdom and allow the presence to guide us to what's flowing, what's acceptable to share with any given person. And with some people, boy, you can just go for it, and no problems. Others have very deep-seated beliefs and programming and doctrines, and I think that we need to not do violence to that we need to respect them and very patiently wait for it. It's not our job to change people, and we can't enlighten them, but we can hold space for them to release limiting beliefs and to open to deeper truth. Sometimes we can even be the instruments of transmitting that deeper truth. But we have to be patient and respectful of where they are now. Because weren't we all somewhere at one time that if we look back, we giggle because, we've grown so much, and some of the things we thought, again, as we awaken, just become ridiculous. And we eventually let go of all of our concepts and of the mind in its totality to embrace something that is beyond comprehension.
As you were saying that, it makes me think of, if you say that to somebody that's really, really struggling to become enlightened, that's just going to become another concept that the mind and the ego are going to work really hard at trying to achieve of the unity consciousness and the end of duality and separation. So it's just I think it's just a wandering journey of us going back and looking at ourselves and what do we believe. And Michael had this mantra a few years ago that's still just precious. It's why do I assume that is true? Mm-hmm. And so just, constantly taking in information and filtering it through your heart and your own inner divine wisdom. And, even when you said the end of separation and unity and it all comes together, everything falls away, I instantly was like, oh, I want that. And it's like...
There's nothing wrong with wanting it, although it's the end of all want.
Right.
It's like...
Right.
I mean, nirvana means to blow out the candle of the separate self.
Right.
Nothing real is lost at all.
Right.
And it's total freedom. I back to the Zen tradition, there are some beautiful pen and ink, they're not a pen, they're black ink paintings done with a brush. It's a very ancient art form in China and in Japan. But there's some these beautiful ones done by enlightened Zen masters that show these guys sitting around laughing their heads off, literally. laughing, and the top of their heads is completely dissolved. If you find one of those, let's get it.
Okay.
That would be great. Actually, we have... This isn't quite the same, but it's not that far off. That's a couple of Zen Buddhist monks laughing their heads off. I love this shot too.
Oh, I said that about when you said that I instantly thought, I want that, because it's constantly paying attention to how our mind and egos step in. And if we listen to them, then we get lost on a tangent instead of returning to the heart and feeling that we already have that instead of thinking, oh, that's what I want. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that was the question of the night.
I guess so.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah.
And you can, if you have a question, about the spiritual journey or your own practice, you can email us too. Either Michael or Suzanne at floweringheart.org. And it'll get to us.
Yep.
And some really great questions have come that way. So, all right. Well, I'd like to invite you to close your eyes and just be. I was going to say to be in the sacred space of your spiritual heart, but where's that? Just be where you are, because that's where it is. Just with your eyes closed, open and welcome within yourself the presence that is pure unconditional love for you, that is the source of your being, that is all-wise, all-knowing, would never judge you, but would take you into its embrace and transform you and release you and awaken you. It's a journey like no other. You don't need to be good enough, pure enough. All you need to do is welcome and receive the light, the life, the love, the grace that is pouring out to you at the center of your being right now. Presence already knows everything about you and knows exactly what you need. So simply receive the Flowering Heart blessing. It brings not only awakening and transformation, it brings healing to spirit, soul, body, relationships, to the world around us. Drink it in. Welcome it with humility and gratitude. to do now but relax and receive. Visualize us sitting in a circle, a blessing circle. With your eyes still closed, lift up your hands with your palms open, facing forward, and invite the presence to pour the flowering heart blessing through you now to all the others sitting in this circle. If you brought problems or issues with you tonight, just put them in the middle of the circle and leave them and invite the divine to pour the blessing through you into those situations, into everyone with you in the circle, knowing they too are holding the intention for the divine presence to pour the blessing through them to you and into whatever you've left in the middle of the circle. can just rest your hands on your lap, on your thighs or knees, with your palms open, turned upward, it's best. And open your eyes when you're ready and begin to make direct eye contact with Suzanne and or me as we begin the light meditation. The presence begins to pour oceans of light and grace through every pore of our being to you, especially through our eyes, which are the doorways of the soul. Just keep looking at least one of our eyes, and there's nothing to do but keep looking and receive. The light will shine in through your eyes into your spiritual heart, causing the flames of awakening and transformation and love within you to burn brighter and brighter. Just keep looking and allow it. You could close your eyes now and meditate for a few more minutes with us as the grace we've all received settles within us. Keep meditating as long as it feels nice to you, or lie down nearby in Shavasana, which is to lie on your back with your eyes closed, your arms loosely at your sides with your palms open, turned upward, and just let yourself dissolve in the presence and gratitude. We love you very much. And we look forward to being with you again very soon.
Much love, light, and blessings until we connect again.
The divine in us sees the divine